Great. So welcome everyone back to already the third and final segment of our day. Boy, time flies when you're having fun. So we're really excited to be at this panel. All panels are exciting, and this one is very interesting, I think, to a lot of people. We're going to be talking about the cloud versus on-prem and what's that sustainability angle. I'd like to introduce a new face to our industry, Ellen Williams. She comes with loads of tech experience, and she is the Director of Advisory and ESG Services at Orion Global Solutions, which is a summit-level Salesforce implementation partner. So Salesforce, of course, does everything in the cloud. So Ellen is a great person to be leading this panel. So I'm going to hand it off to Ellen, and she'll introduce the panel, and we'll go from there. Any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that for the panel. So off you go.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Barbara. Welcome, everyone. We are all excited to be here, and I know this is going to be a lot of fun. I am, as was mentioned, Ellen Williams. I have over 25 years of experience in technology and more recently ESG. So really excited to hear what our panelists have to say on the topic of cloud versus on-prem. What's the sustainability angle? So as a quick primer, I just want to share information that was shared with me. And we're talking about media companies and sustainability and why it's important to have this conversation, not just for large organizations, but for small and medium companies as well. And you can see here some pretty large media companies have already publicly said their goals. And in the world of ESG and sustainability, there is lovely scope 3 that really encapsulates the supply chain. So for an organization such as Disney or Sony to be putting out a goal for net zero, that's going to rely on all of their suppliers being able to prove that information as well. And that's why we really want to talk about what's the sustainability angle and where does on-cloud storage and content management versus on-prem storage and content management fall into play. So I am going to bring on our panelists, introduce them one at a time, let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into the first question. So first on our list today, Amanda, could you please just do a brief introduction?
Sure, no problem. Thanks, Ellen. My name is Amanda Holstrom. I work for a company called Ross Video as a product manager. And today I'm here. I'm a big part of the cloud and the cloud solutions that Ross is bringing to the world. But today I was invited for a different reason. So Ross is recently, we have a great deal of business we do in hardware, and we've announced several products that are subscribing to something called a hyper-converged design philosophy, which has tremendous sustainability advantages. So today, although we partner with AWS and we really believe in cloud and offering lots of options to our customers, today I'm here playing a bit of devil's advocate. So talking about the advantages that hardware offers in the sustainability realm. So yeah, thank you, Ellen.
Excellent, Amanda. Thanks so much. Alex, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alex Redfern. I'm the CTO at EVS. EVS is a company known for one particular thing, which is replays, but actually we have a much broader product portfolio. And obviously we're known as a hardware company as well. So, but what's quite interesting is being known as a hardware company actually only represents about 20% of what we do. And the other 80% is software. And obviously software, there is a transition to the cloud in software. So I would say also representing hardware, for the masses, but very much early on the journey towards migration to the cloud, and very much EVS is a proponent of ESG sustainability, but ESG as a whole, and And I'm sure we can share later on some of the things that EVS have been doing and some of the work that we've done on our carbon footprint recognition and so on. So we're a big proponent of ESG in general, but obviously the sustainability angle plays a big part of that for us.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Alex. And lastly, Thomas, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Thomas Edwards. I'm a principal solutions architect at Amazon Web Services, and a solution architect is someone who helps our customers architect their cloud solutions to meet their business objectives. I've been in the broadcast industry for about 20 years, first at PBS, working on their satellite interconnection system, and then later at Fox, working on their satellite interconnection system, as well as advanced technology projects, 4K, stereoscopic 3D, high dynamic range, and that little thing that became SMPTE 2110. And I've been at AWS for about 2.5 years now, working on cloud projects, especially in the broadcast live area.
Terrific. Thank you to all three of you. Very, very much looking forward to this conversation. So we're going to jump in with the questions. Of course, we're talking about sustainability and to something that Thomas just said about business objectives. So what are the deciding factors for choosing cloud or Prem, such as the size of the organization, the size of the content or amount of content, or maybe the frequency that the content is created? What are those key elements for a media company to make sure that it does align with their business objectives and also has sustainability as part of the offering? And let's start with Alex.
It's a very broad question. It's difficult to know exactly where to start. I think when you look at the list of companies that you showed earlier, they are all major conglomerates. And often the productions, when you actually get down to the TV that they produce, the actual television that they produce, it's produced by third-party companies. It's produced by systems integrators, truck providers, live service providers, and sometimes the way those live service providers operate can be very disconnected from the overall strategy of the BBC or Comcast or Sky or whoever that might be. So I think the first thing is making sure that their strategic objectives match what happens on the day-to-day of TV production. So I think how do they do that? I think obviously it comes down to the level of, okay, where do we need people? Where are our signals? Where are our cameras? How do we move people around? How do we fit people in the right place? So you look at what Sky produce at the weekend for a football match, for example, and there are certain things that they can do in the cloud where they can do a certain level of production. And it's difficult for me as a vendor to know what that scale is, but it might be 6 cameras, 8 cameras, 10 cameras, there's a certain amount. And then there's a certain amount that will say beyond that, we will flip to an on-prem model. And that might be in a truck, it might be in a broadcast center. There's a finite number, and it might be to do with bandwidth or connectivity or security even. There's so many different factors that will answer that question. I look at something in a sort of a tiers of production. If I look at a sort of a tier 1 production, when you've got 30 cameras running in 1080p HDR, it's quite hard to get those into the cloud. There's a good expression in English football, which would be can they do it in Stoke on a Thursday night? And it's a really valid expression when it comes to migration to the cloud. Can you do it in those small towns, those big events in those small towns? Maybe in the US, but maybe not in Europe. So it's hard to give a sort of a one-word finite answer, but there are a series of factors that will play into the decision making of when something is on-prem or in the cloud.
Thanks.
It's interesting. It might be interesting to hear from Thomas about the some of those factors, like bandwidth I see as a key one. And then you talk about compression. And if you want to bring things into the cloud, you can talk about compression, but then some people don't want to compress. It's fascinating digging into those numbers.
So to that, Thomas, what's your response to the question? What are the key elements to deciding whether cloud or on-prem is the best way to go?
Well, there are a whole range of different media and entertainment applications on the cloud: content production, media supply chain, broadcast, direct consumer, and of course, all of the artificial intelligence and analytics that kind of bring that all together. It can all be done on the cloud. we have to work with our individual customers to understand, which workloads they're interested in moving to cloud and why. But I will say there are at least 3 workloads that are really show some sustainability advantages on the cloud. The first one is live cloud production. And in fact, this is something we've been doing with a bunch of our customers. With Sky, for instance, they've been able to dramatically expand their coverage of women's netball, moving from about 10 shows a year to over 100 shows with Netball Super League. And by moving to the cloud, it means a whole bunch of things. First of all, you're moving to a highly efficient IT infrastructure. Cloud providers, we're not the only one out there, but cloud providers in general have tremendous scale, tremendous knowledge and experience, and can bring high efficiencies to the data center. We can see that according to third-party studies, AWS infrastructure is more than 3 times more energy efficient than your typical on-premise data center in the US, and more than 5 times more energy efficient in EU and Asia. So already, just from the processing standpoint, there's some significant advantages to being in cloud. But then the other nice thing about live cloud production is, as Fox Sports showed with their Major League Baseball shadow production they did last year, you can produce it from home. You can literally be in your home office or be out on your porch connected over the internet to the cloud, and you can be producing a Major League Baseball game with no problems, with a result that ends up looking as good as what was produced in the truck. The European League of Football just recently started up their live cloud productions for this year, for 2023. And their estimate is they are going to be saving over 300 tons of CO2 emissions by not having as much travel, both in terms of moving personnel as well as moving equipment. And Media Monks, which is also another live production company, they've shown the ability to reduce their travel by 75%. Using live cloud production. And, that's a tremendous amount of CO2 emissions which are being saved. But there also is edit in the cloud as well, which is, allows you to bring your editors virtually into the cloud where the media is. So the media doesn't have to move, where the high power editing virtual infrastructure is. So you don't have to have that on all the time within your facility. And also media supply chain. And SDVI has been really good about this, about showing significant amounts of carbon savings of file-based media supply chain production on the cloud, using technologies like event-driven infrastructure, where no resources are being used unless you actually have a file arrive and be ready to be transcoded. And also, they're doing a great job of taking any remaining carbon emissions and being able to use carbon offsets to negate those emissions they have within the SDVI Rally supply chain.
Wow, thank you to both of you. So in addition to some of the things in the initial question, such as the size of the content and amount of the content, you both have really opened the door for a lot of other key factors to making that decision, including your trucks and the ESG sustainability around that. Amanda, what are your thoughts on this? What, in addition to, or do you support some of the key factors for making the decision that have already been brought up?
I think the other panelists make great points. What we see driving our really large customers to the cloud, what's making it really enticing for them, is the promise of flexibility, unlimited scale. They're feeling business pressure to do more with the same personnel, the same experts they have, the same studios. They want to see new channels, new content, round the clock studio usage. We're also seeing the rise of the gig economy. We aren't seeing as many professionals in the industry wanting to make long-term purchases. They want to rent something just for the use for that particular production. And I think kind of pulling the world back a little bit, where as we're kind of embracing this promise of unlimited resources, is the topic of sustainability. So although I think Thomas made a great point that AWS is far more efficient than a local data center, I think we'll find that hardware that's purpose-built, deployed on-prem, is currently more efficient. we do see cloud vendors like AWS embracing purpose-built technologies. So with the introduction several years ago of the EC2 F1 instances that they have, where applications can be built specifically for the purposes of FPGA rich media processing. So we see cloud vendors doing this. We see them being aware of this. But there's many cases where, in particular, rich media processing, software-based media processing is, in some papers that I've read, almost 20 times as efficient as if you're doing it on FPGA, on-prem hardware, purpose-built hardware, as opposed to doing it in a cloud-based environment. So while I agree, there's huge advantages, there's huge interest from businesses. I think it is important to open the dialogue around sustainability and really examine, are the vendors in the cloud using offsets? Are they designing around it? Or do we really have an advantage when it comes to buying something that's fit for purpose?
Great points, and more terrific buzzwords, purpose-built, and the flexibility and scale. So really great feedback from what you're seeing out there in the field. So what is the energy usage? Do we have information on how much the cloud is sustainable or needs to be more sustainable versus the sustainability of on-prem? Amanda, do you want to keep that conversation going?
I will. I bet Thomas and I are both about to hold up some papers. So the first one I'll hold up is from AWS. If anyone is consuming AWS services right now, so EC2 instances, AWS has given some really, they provide great tools, and they provide advice to vendors like Ross and others on how to architect and design systems and workloads so that they're most efficient for cloud-based deployment. So as somebody consuming services, asking about that, asking, hey, I see you've given me 3 deployment patterns. Where's your sustainable one? How are you deploying your workloads in a more sustainable way? With all that said, AWS is doing a lot to raise visibility there. What the paper that I'm going to quote is, it was from 2019. It was an IEEE paper, and I think we saw Amazon respond to this paper by the work they're doing with Xilinx to provide those F1 instances. But they said the result of the paper was that FPGA is consuming 3 to 4 times less energy for the same workload as cloud-based technologies for that specific software-based media processing. So this is a very niche kind of compute that's happening, but it is something that I think, as I said, that purpose-built technology is recognized as having an advantage.
Okay, let's go to Thomas for that, since she went right to some of your research there.
So, I do want to say that, Amazon takes sustainability very seriously. First of all, Amazon was a co-founder of the Climate Pledge to be net zero across all of Amazon, not just Amazon Web Services, but Amazon.com, Prime Video, et cetera, to be carbon neutral by 2040. We also will be water positive for AWS by 2030. And of course, data centers often need a lot of water for cooling. We're trying to use recycled water where possible. In some areas, we're able to use advanced IoT technologies to reduce the amount of water used, to be able to use more cool air from the outside as opposed to water-based cooling on the inside, and to be able to give some of the used fluid back to farmers who can actually use it to irrigate their crops. So that's water positivity by 2030. Across Amazon, we're going to be using 100% renewable energy by 2025. And already there are 13 AWS regions which use at least 95% renewable energy. And if you're interested, you can use the AWS customer carbon footprint tool in order to understand what your individual workloads are contributing in terms of your carbon footprint. So I think we're on a great path towards the use of renewable energy in AWS, but we also do have a wide range of different virtual compute capabilities, as Amanda was mentioning. We do have FPGAs, We have the Xilinx Alveo VT1 instances, which have specially produced ASICs that do high efficiency video encoding, as well as our Intel chips and our AMD based systems. We also have a special Graviton chip, which is based on ARM. And we find that Graviton for CPU based processing is far more energy efficient and actually saves you money at the end of the day. The challenge there being you've got to port your software to the ARM infrastructure, but once you're there, Graviton's a great place to be. For that, people working on artificial intelligence, we've got Trainium, which is a specialized high efficiency ASIC for AI training, as well as Inferentia, a specialized ASIC for inferencing for neural networks. So we've got a wide range of virtual processing which you can make use of, and then you can try to identify which of those is going to be most efficient for your particular workload.
Great. Thank you for that extra information there. It didn't occur to me, and it probably should have, that it's not just the technology itself and the energy that it's consuming, but it's where that energy is coming from, right? And so, Thomas, to your point, the fact that potentially cloud-based may be using more energy, but if the source of that is clean energy, then that's another thing to consider when making the decision. So, Alex, what are your thoughts about the amount of energy that on-prem versus cloud would use?
I think to jump on Amanda's point, like we had some very concrete, measurable examples. That was the advantage of on-prem. It was very measurable, so you could say exactly what you consume. So we had a product that's a new multi-viewer solution that draws 125 watts of power, and we know we can measure that the COTS equivalent, the COTS competition, uses 900 watts. And if it were deployed in Amazon, it would be a bare metal instance. Now, the nice thing is, as you say, even with a bare metal instance in AWS type approach, it's guaranteed green, or you know that it will be guaranteed green energy by 2025. Did you say, Thomas? Which is fantastic. And I think that's something that, as a manufacturer, we can't do at the moment, is we can't guarantee that our products are being used with green energy. What we might do as a manufacturer is start to incentivize our customers in some way to use them with green energy, so that we can mitigate the fact that, yes, we are consuming energy. And many of our customers, obviously, they have those kind of targets as well. So many of them want to consume green energy. So we start to see that the use of green energy will be more and more important in the future. But also, I think, I don't mean it in a bad way, but sort of proper green energy, something that is not carbon credits, that's not sort of just, it's all good, we've checked the boxes. It's like, no, we want to make sure that that is direct input from wind farms or whatever it might be, solar energy or something like that. And that's where, to Amazon's credit, that's where they're very good. I think when you go on the website, it's very nice to go and be able to see where that energy is coming from. I know I can see where we use AWS as well, where the data center is and where that energy is drawn from. And I think, as a manufacturer, that's something that we'd like to be able to do. But our customers put that pressure on us now. But it's very nice to see the measurable side of things. And what is quite interesting is on-prem, we talked about scalability and flexibility. On-prem doesn't actually scale that much. When you install something, it's quite a fixed install. So it's quite easy to measure. And certainly in a broadcast facility, normally you turn it on and 7 years later, you turn it off and decommission it. So it's actually quite easy to figure that out. When you get into the world of remote productions or trucks or those kind of things, measuring the energy consumption of them is interesting and difficult. Did it run for 6 hours or 7 hours, 8 hours? What impact does that have? So we're starting to see the trend for those on-prem measuring tools, like measuring energy consumption, as well as product features, logging, all that kind of useful information. But now energy consumption is a really key one for them to start tracking and measuring, because it will help all of us to measure our carbon footprints in the future.
Agreed. Yep. Alex, I'm going to stay with you and keep rolling on this. So we don't have an actual on-prem versus cloud energy usage. However, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you're working for a larger organization who has a public statement, you are part of their supply chain. And Alex, to your point, you mentioned that some of your customers have their own targets. Mm-hmm. So the question to the panel, and we'll stay with you, Alex, is what is your organization doing to reduce your emissions? And what kind of advice do you have for your clients to help them do the same?
I don't know if you have the slide, but we did our first carbon footprint this year. So if you're more than welcome to show it if you have it. So it's the bilan carbon, and basically, yeah, this is our carbon footprint, where 62% of our carbon footprint comes from the use of our products by our customers or by our clients. So actually, our carbon footprint is impacted by our customers' use of our products. So it's in our interest to reduce our carbon footprint to help our customers reduce it. And obviously, them using our products is having an impact on their own carbon footprint as well. So like you say, it's like a chain. And the other 21% comes from commercial purchase. So if we can secure, more efficient components, if we can have a better supply chain of components, we will also reduce our carbon footprint and knock-on effect our customers' carbon footprint. So you can see from our company, not a lot of our carbon footprint comes from travels. There's a bit missing actually, but this represents 44 tons CO2 equivalent, basically. But the majority of our carbon footprint is coming from the use of our products. This is the first time we've done it. And we did it based on 2021 data, and we'll probably do it again based on 2022 data, and we'll continue to refine it and make it more and more accurate. We want to be as transparent as possible, both internally to the company and externally to our customers as well. It makes absolute sense. It helps with, from an ESG perspective, it helps with onboarding of people. It's what our young team members want. So it's really interesting to share this. It's all public information. We have a sustainability report, and certain customers now, we cannot sign deals with certain specific, it's actually European customers at the moment, but that trend is moving to the US. But there are certain European customers that you cannot sign deals with if you don't release this kind of information and you don't make commitments. Now, to be clear, we haven't made our commitments yet. That's our goal for this year, is to make commitments on what we will do by 2030. We needed a carbon footprint first to be able to make commitments. So that's our next step. Basically, that's our goals for the end of this year, is to have our reduction commitments, and we'd like a relative reduction and an absolute reduction as well. And we want to make sure those commitments are science-based, and not sort of finger in the air. Oh yeah, we think we can do this. So yeah, it's interesting to share that, and it's interesting to share it with our customers, and it becomes increasingly more and more mandated that we have to do this.
Yeah, I think not just having your finger in the air is probably a good strategy, right? Actually, you're getting some data. So, Thomas, are you delivering this kind of information to your clients as well, so that they have that information for their own footprint?
Yeah, I mean, we publish a great deal of material on our website. I encourage anyone to take a look for AWS and environment, and they'll be able to see a lot of the information which we published on our website. And also, we've got the customer carbon footprint tool available for individual customers. If you're familiar with the AWS well-architected framework, which is a set of guidelines to help cloud architects understand the pros and cons of the decisions they make in their cloud architecture, we've added a new pillar to that. So including things like efficiency and scalability and security comes sustainability. And you can go through the information within that sustainability pillar of the well-architected framework to understand, are your cloud architecture decisions, how are they affecting the sustainability of your workloads?
And Amanda, is there information that you deliver to your clients?
Yeah, sure. So I think any organization preparing a sustainability statement right now is greeted with a lot of skepticism. I'm in Canada, and Canada Post just shared a study on this, that it's very, very difficult for consumers to be confident that the vendors and the products that they're purchasing are living up to the sustainability statements that they're making. Ross Video has been committed to sustainability for many years. So our manufacturing is done within 100 kilometers of our R&D headquarters here in Ottawa. That our chief manufacturing officer, he lives in this small town where our manufacturing happens, and he's keeping his backyard clean. We have a commitment to zero carbon emissions within several years. And also, as the engineers inside Ross are so closely tied to our manufacturing colleagues, we design for manufacture. So this considers not only the parts that we're acquiring, how far apart our supply chain, how far away the suppliers are. We do a lot of the metal that goes into the Ross chassis are sourced within 100 kilometers of the factory. All of our packaging is sourced within 30 kilometers, is all paper-based, so recyclable. And the components that we're designing, you're going to see as Ross announces more and more products along this hyper-converged design philosophy, they're 10 times lighter than the previous products that we were making and others in the industry are making, which means less material to transport for manufacture and less material to transport to our customers. And further, one core element of the hyper-converged design philosophy is a modular design. This extends the useful life of technology that Ross is selling. It means that as technology trends change, you can replace cards, you can replace elements. As elements break, we're not shipping 500 kilos of equipment back to several different manufacturers. We're receiving small pieces, small fans, small boards. And I think this kind of philosophy comes all the way from the top. So our CEO, David Ross, has been committed to having that factory reduce its carbon emissions for the benefit of the people who work there, who breathe that air. And it's got a lot of interest from the industry around not only the cost savings from the operational side, that a smaller unit or a smaller piece of hardware that consumes less energy, that is purpose-built, presents, but also the entire life cycle of that product.
Thank you so much. So we are at time. And so please, if the panelists would come off mute, I want to thank you all very much for being here. It was a really terrific conversation. There's a couple questions in the chat we didn't get to. It was a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you to everyone who attended. And I'm going to hand it back over to Barbara.
Thank you, Ellen and Alex and Thomas and Amanda. That was great. I know what we've learned in this day is that 30 minutes is just scratching the surface. So apologies that we planned it too short. Next time it's going to be longer.